Did I intro?
Yeah, do the thing, buddy.
Welcome to the Critical Christian Podcast. The two of you who are watching. I'm your host, Dan.
And obviously, I'm Justin. We ask critical questions about the Bible and provide questionable answers.
Whether you like it or not.
Really hammered that one, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to let them know.
It's the caffeine.
It is the caffeine. Fair enough. Well, we're in Exodus 18.
Nice.
Which coincidentally comes after 17.
It does. And that's only a coincidence. That
sure
doesn't
is.
happen in the Hebrew Bible.
Never. Well, actually, that's actually a fair point. There's no number. There's no chapters in the Hebrew Bible.
I'm funny.
And so this week we're going to talk about Moses, needing a little bit of help from his friends.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And we're going to cover a couple other dicey topics here on chapter 18. Interestingly enough, though, he just got done with a war against the Amalekites.
Yeah, that's right.
Successful war against the Amalekites. And so you'd think like chilling and judging the people wouldn't be quite as strenuous, but
yeah,
apparently, keeping your own people in check is harder than murdering a whole invading army.
Well, there's 2.5 million of them, man.
There's a lot, yeah.
That invading army was probably pretty tiny.
Yeah,
I think that's what we determined.
I think the 2.5 million is exaggerated, but either way,
you can have no weapons and have 2.5 million people and just bum rush them.
That's a good point. If you got 2.5 million people and say like an army of 100,000 come after you,
right?
I mean, I think you could probably still find a way to win.
The 100,000?
Yeah, no,
yeah, you just walk over them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
I agree with you.
Some of you will die.
Yeah, well, there will be casualties.
That's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
It's a sacrifice you're willing to make as long as you're not the one fighting.
Right.
That sounds about right. All right, well, with that then, let's go ahead and start reading, let's see, verses. I have to get a good stopping point.
Okay.
Let's read like 1 through 4.
Sure. Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro took her back, along with her 2 sons. The name of the one was Gershom, for he had said, I have been an alien in a foreign land. And the name of the other was Eleazar, for he had said, the God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Man, that's boring.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it was designed to be, riveting theater.
Yeah, but all right. So before we get into anything, you say Jethro has a different name, right?
Yeah, Reuel.
Yeah, that's it.
I believe.
Now, where is that again?
The same book we're reading right now.
Oh, what chapter?
I don't know. I didn't know I was going to be quizzed on it.
Well, it's just I figured you knew this.
Well, I don't track when everybody's name comes up. I can find it for you.
But you know the Bible. I figured, It's fine.
I got to figure out how to spell it.
Yeah.
Exodus 2, apparently.
But we've already done Exodus 2.
That's what I said. It's in Exodus. That's how I know it. When they returned to their father, Reuel, he said, how is it that you have come back so soon today?
So here's the question. Why does it go from Jethro to Reuel?
Well, because they're clearly 2 independent stories that got smushed together into one narrative.
Are they the same person?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
Explain.
Didn't they really? In Numbers 10:29 too. Moses said to Hobab, son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law. There's 2 historical narratives that are smushed together, and in one story the father was Jethro, and the other it's Reuel.
Don't the people who wrote the Bible realize that people are going to read this and go, "Wait, didn't we?" Shouldn't they have picked a name and just went with it? You know what I mean?
No, they're just going to conflate the 2 names and say it's the same person.
And people aren't going to be like, hey, what?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like, everyone so far has had 2 names. Seems pretty common.
How do you figure?
Moses, not Moses, Abraham, Sarah. Bunch of name changes going on.
Yeah, but this wasn't a name change.
Well, we don't know that. The reader could assume.
Does it ever use the word Rael again after chapter 18 here?
I don't know if it does.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is he's got two names in the book.
I'm just saying, is it just, are they two of the same story, just with different names then?
No.
They're two different stories.
Clearly, yeah. They're two different traditions. So they smushed them together to make one tradition.
Because they didn't want Moses to have two fathers-in-law.
Basically.
Even though it would appear as though he had two of them. Because we don't know which one is the correct one.
No, I mean, we don't even know if either of these names are the actual name of the father-in-law. These are traditions that were smushed together.
I appreciate it.
Like if someone told you a story about your great-great-great-great-grandpa, Grandpa George, and then somebody told you another story about the same man and his name was Joe instead of George, you'd be like, well, I mean, his name's either Joe or George. If we just smush them together, we can eliminate having people question what his name is.
So you think that's what happened? They didn't know his name, but they knew it was either Jethro or Rael, and so they're like, forget it, we'll just use them back and forth?
Well, I think the most likely thing is his name was either Jethro or Rael or something completely different.
Right, that's what I said, except for the last part.
Oh, you're trying to get at here?
I'm just trying to figure out this stuff. It just seems weird to call somebody by a different name and then call them a different name after that and not draw attention to it. That's all.
Right, because they've got separate background narratives. The North and the South have separate background narratives with different names, different places. That's why Bethel gets named Bethel twice. Jacob gets named Israel twice.
How can you believe one or why? Which one do you know to believe then? If each one is different,
I don't think either of them are true. Also, I don't think that his name matters. What if his name had nothing to do with what's in the text? What if his name was Jim Bob?
I mean, it has nothing to do with the text.
Right, it's irrelevant.
For me.
Did the story happen? The question.
Okay, and?
That's for you to figure out if you believe it happened.
I just don't know.
The name isn't really relevant.
I just don't know why, if they're talking about the same person, the North and the South would have different stories.
They had different names for Yahweh. Even in the South, a lot of times they called them Yahoo. In the North, it was Yahweh.
Yahoo.
Oh boy.
What?
We had this conversation before.
Nah. I think I would have made fun of the Yahoo or something at least.
No, in the South, they called them Yahoo pretty often.
Probably didn't mean the same thing it means now, huh?
Roughly the same.
Oh, it did? Means yay. That's what Yahoo means.
Hebrew, not English.
Oh, in Hebrew. Well,
I don't know why you think a Hebrew word means the same thing in English.
Well, maybe the English word took from the Hebrew.
It didn't.
Well, it could have.
It didn't.
I'm just saying it could have.
We didn't really steal a lot of words from Hebrew.
You don't think?
No, we stole our words from the Germanic and Northeastern Europeans.
Yeah, and where'd they get their words from?
The people who came before them in the same region.
And where'd the people before them get them? My point is
that the Hebrews.
I think it all. I mean, because the Hebrews, that was one of the first written languages spoken. Whatever, right?
No.
It's pretty close, though. Pretty close. You don't think?
It wasn't.
I mean, it was pretty close.
About 1,500 years off. More than that. About 2,000 years off.
From what, the Phoenicians? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Came from, primarily from Phoenician, which came from, Proto-Sinaitic, which came from Egyptian hieroglyph, which came from, earlier Egyptian hieroglyphs.
Okay. All right. Well, then I withdraw my question.
And the long and short of it is, we've got two traditions for Moses' father-in-law.
Right.
And Moses' backstory, and they're smushed together. And because of that, there's some name confusion. Just like there's name confusion between the name of God. Is it Yahweh or is it El?
Okay, and I guess that's fine. But so we're saying that everything else, though, is the same, like their stories?
I have no idea. I mean, if there's two separate traditions that get smushed together, all we have is the one tradition that they gave to us.
Right.
We don't know what they read like separately.
did somebody in the north say, "Hey, that's not our tradition," and somebody in the south say the same thing? Now that they've been squished together.
I have no idea what they did.
I mean, that would be an issue.
I mean, they couldn't read for the most part. I mean, had like a 1% literacy rate, so it's not like people are reading this thing and like, oh, they got that wrong. Like, who's reading it?
I don't know. The priests who want to make sure this works, right?
Yeah, most of these stories, even after they're written, most of these stories are being passed down orally.
Okay.
It's not like they're sitting down with their family reading this stuff every Sunday. Yeah. So if there's like a mistaken narrative or something like that, like no one's gonna catch it. I mean,
yeah. Okay.
One of those things. Yeah.
And the priests who are writing it, they have a vested interest in this working, right?
Yeah, the priests writing it are very interested in
unifying them, right?
Well, they want to make sure that the story's pleasing to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Or else you piss off the people that bring you the sacrifices and offerings. And you need those.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to go without those.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we're good. That was important for me, though, even though it was verse 0.
Right, yeah. I mean, we literally didn't say anything about the... Yeah. Verse 2. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law, Jethro took her back. It's interesting the way that it's worded. Because it's worded as though he like literally sent her away, like he put her away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Didn't they have like a little fight or something?
Well, yeah. Back in chapter 4, I believe, there was the whole bridegroom of blood situation where Yahweh was seeking to kill Moses or one of Moses' sons. And Zipporah had to take a flint knife and do an emergency tip removal, and
which you can understand why she'd be upset, right?
Yeah, I could imagine so.
I don't know who she's upset with, Moses or God.
Maybe both, but my suspicion is that he didn't put her away or send her away like the Levites' concubine in Judges 19. My suspicion is that it was just dangerous.
I have no idea what that means, but
yeah, because you haven't read Judges 19.
Of course.
Fine.
Well, I assumed he was just like, if I'm freeing the Israelites, it's going to get hairy in here. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
But I also thought, what I thought was that Zipporah actually decided on her own to leave because she was getting pissed off with Moses. And so he took the kids and bounced.
Maybe. Women didn't practice that level of autonomy too often. Not that it couldn't happen in the ancient world, but it was more rare. But it certainly could be that they got into a big fight after the bridegroom of blood situation.
Right, yeah.
And then Moses is like, fine then, just go back with Jethro until I'm finished.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
Well, I mean, she took her 2 sons. I mean, she obviously thought it was dangerous.
Right. That's what I'm agreeing with you.
Right. If there wasn't going to be danger involved, Moses would have said, you leave the sons with me. I'm assuming the sons are, of age.
Oh, I thought they were young.
It doesn't really say.
Well, you said that Zipporah had to circumcise them. Is that correct?
I don't know. The story in Exodus 4 isn't very clear whether or not she had to circumcise the child or Moses.
Okay. I just assumed they'd have to be pretty young because you don't live that long without getting circumcised, right?
Yeah. 8th day you get circumcised typically, but Moses...
So they got to be at least pretty young.
But Moses was 80 years old and uncircumcised. I'm trying to tell you. We don't know if it was Moses or the child that God was wanting circumcised. The story doesn't really clarify it very well. All you know is it pissed Zipporah off pretty good.
Yeah. I wonder why God would have... I mean, if it was Moses... I don't know why God wouldn't have taken care of that a lot earlier in the story.
I know, I agree. You'd think that...
So I have to assume that they're talking about the child.
Why?
Because of what I just said. Moses would have taken care of that a long time ago.
You think all of the Israelites were circumcised?
Yeah.
No?
That was the law.
Nope.
Yeah.
You haven't read Exodus or Joshua then?
I've read some of Exodus.
Before they enter the promised land, the whole tribe of Israel have to circumcise themselves because they haven't been circumcised because they weren't abiding by the law of Yahweh. They were in Egypt for 400 years.
Okay, but they had been at some point, right? Before they got into Egypt for 400.
The book never says.
Oh, yeah, it does.
No, the only circumcision we've seen prior to the Exodus narrative, or the last circumcision we saw prior to the Exodus narrative, was when the Shechemites got destroyed by was it Reuben?
See, that's what I was going to reference, because before that, because they were supposedly all laid up in bed.
Yeah, but then they were in Egypt for 400
years. And they
years.
did that because they wanted to be like the Israelites.
Yes, and then they were in Egypt for 400 years.
Right.
We have no idea if any of these people are circumcised.
Well, I mean, fine. I didn't think of that. But, I don't know, still feels like they'd probably want to keep some sort of tradition going to set them apart from the Egyptians.
But to be fair, the Egyptians did practice circumcision, though.
I know. I'm ignoring that part because it doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Does that make, you know what I mean?
All I'm saying is we don't know if these people were circumcised.
All right, that's fine.
Certainly don't know if Moses was circumcised. We can assume that Moses growing up in the palace may have followed Egyptian customs and got himself circumcised.
Weird. I've always only thought about that as like a Jewish thing.
Oh, it's certainly not.
I mean, and then moving into Christianity, obviously, but more like, yeah. All right, let's get on to whatever.
The real question is, if he was trying to kill the baby, I mean, why would you execute a baby because their parent didn't circumcise them? That sounds horrific.
Yeah, right. As if we haven't seen stuff like that before.
I know, God's pretty fond of
at a certain point, I'm just like, okay, whatever.
A lot of dead babies in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. One day we'll have to get into the morality of God.
Right.
But that seems like a really hard, long topic.
It's going to be a tough one, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Let's read 5 through 9.
Can I see 4 again, please?
Oh, sorry.
So they were just naming their children. They were just talking about what the names of their children were. Yeah. Does this come up again later?
Yeah, it's in Chronicles and elsewhere.
No, I meant somewhere important.
Gershom comes up again.
Like,
are Moses' sons important?
Yes.
No, not really.
So why do we have to listen to their names and then also what the names mean?
Because we have everybody's names in the book. Lineage is important. But not everybody in the lineage is important.
Weird the names they choose, you know what I mean?
Why?
Because I'll name my kid, I have been an alien in a foreign land.
Yeah, so?
That's what he's naming his kid.
So?
We don't do that.
So?
That was it. That was the whole argument. There was no more, period.
Well, yeah, they had different naming conventions.
I know, I'm just saying they're weird.
They wanted names that mean things. We don't care. We just, pick out weird sounding, names. Oh, I like that combination of syllables. Let's make that a thing.
Yeah, right. Something that sounds good.
Yeah.
But they wanted it to mean something. All right. That's fair. Number 5.
You ever met anyone with uber weird names? Like, I knew someone growing up named Star.
Oh, that's a nice name, though. Unless it has 2 R's, in which case it's not nice.
I don't think it did.
Yeah.
But it was weird. I was always curious if she had siblings, if they would be like named Moon and Sun. But it didn't really happen.
Or Nova.
Maybe. But there's there's a lot of weird names out there.
Yeah, I get you.
I apologize for anyone with this name, but when I was a kid, I knew someone named Dace.
Dace.
Dace isn't
How do you spell that?
A very catchy name. The D-A-C-E, I think.
Dace. Dacey?
No, just Dace.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Good kid.
Yeah.
A little hyper, but I always thought that was weird. It's like names nowadays don't have meanings. My name had a meaning. Your name probably has a biblical meaning,
right? Yeah.
From the tribe of Dan. Mine comes from the Latin language for justice, right?
Actually, a lot of our names do that, I think, actually, now I think about it.
A lot of our names actually do have meanings. People just forget what they are.
Okay.
Right.
You've made a point.
But there is a popular movement right now to name people names that are completely meaningless. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really, I don't know what happened there.
That's fair.
Yeah. Although my favorite name ever is a NASCAR driver named Richard Trickle.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's yeah. I always thought if I ever had a child, I'd name him Seven.
Seven?
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's a Seinfeld reference, if anybody gets it.
I don't.
George Costanza wanted to name his child Seven. He thought it was the perfect name.
I don't recall.
I'm sorry.
Must have forgot that one.
I think they're on Netflix still, right?
That's wild, yeah. Seven. Why seven?
Oh, he just loved it.
So weird.
Yeah.
That's a very George thing. Oh, well, yeah, let's read 5 through 9.
All right. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, along with Moses' sons and wife, came into the wilderness where Moses was encamped at the mountain of God. So that's what, Sinai?
Well, it's either Horeb or Sinai.
Are those the same thing?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, so they're just the same, different names for the same place?
Yep, we already went over this.
Yeah, but this is a different thing.
Nope, we went over it like 3 times in previous chapters.
Oh, did
already.
we?
Yeah.
Yeah, a while ago. All right.
Remember, 2 traditions smushed together. Places and people have different names.
Fine.
Yeah.
He sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you.
Wait, is Jethro his father-in-law? I couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
you didn't pick that up yet?
That's why they said it 5 times. I just wasn't sure.
That's why they had to include it for people like you. I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. He bowed down and kissed him. Each asked after the other's welfare, and they went into the tent. Then Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardship that had found them on the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. Hey, so Jethro, he's in what, Midian, something like that? Now, where is that compared to Egypt?
Really, just across the Suez Canal.
You can be a lot more specific. Like
just on the other side of the Suez Canal?
Miles.
I don't know, 2 miles?
Wouldn't Jethro have seen some of these plagues?
Well, the plagues were in Egypt.
Yeah, but that's not that far away. You'd think some of them would at least have some sort of splash damage, at least.
I don't think so.
You don't think?
No.
But didn't you say the one plague of sickness or whatever? That's what caused some other neighboring place to have a lot of people die off?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know, and I don't know enough to say it.
So. Did the plague in Egypt, do you mean the Hittite Empire catching the Egyptian plague in the early Bronze Age?
You knew what I meant.
Yeah, so if you look
at what I meant.
The map on the screen, the purple blob. Oh, good to see it in the chat there, Chet. It says the Hittite Empire in purple. The Hittite Empire did have a very big dying off during the reign of Mursili II, and actually probably during his father's time a little bit too. And they caught the plague from the Egyptians.
Right.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, how come the Midians didn't catch it?
Because they didn't go to war with the Egyptians.
Oh.
Obviously.
Still, you don't say obviously, like it's an obvious thing. I know the answer to all these questions. I'm just pretending I'm dumb to be like the everyman.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
So
I'm a biblical scholar too.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So on the map, I mean, Midian's basically going to be down in here.
Okay.
Right? So, and they're over here. So they're just on the other side of the canal.
Well, I guess a nice big river would, be hard for diseases to pass through, right?
But what river?
That canal there.
This canal here?
Yeah. No, the other one.
Here.
No, the other one.
Here?
Yes, that one.
I'm confused. Who's diseased?
The plagues in Egypt. It would be hard for them to...
Egypt's over here.
Yeah.
I'm so lost right now.
I'm just saying it would be hard for the plagues to reach all the way to Midian.
Well, yeah, because Midian's not in Egypt.
Yeah, and because there's a nice canal separating them, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, it certainly is a canal separating them, but, I mean, there's hundreds of miles separating the Hittites. People still traveled.
Yeah, but
The Midianites just didn't have that much contact with the Egyptians, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I find it hard to believe they wouldn't at least have heard of what was going on, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, whether or not they heard about what was happening.
Because he's acting like, what? This is news to me.
And it's roughly the same time period. Not exactly the same time period, but the Hittite plague was in the Middle Bronze Age around the 14th century.
Okay.
So, yeah, if there was an actual plague in Egypt and the Hittite Empire went to war with them, yeah, certainly you can see why there was such a dying off. But the problem is the plague that is recorded in Egypt, we don't know much about it. They didn't write extensively about it.
Yeah.
The Hittites did. It sounded to me like it's one of those sicknesses where they probably had it in Egypt before and their immune system was adjusted to it.
Okay.
But the Hittites, not so much. Kind of like when the Europeans came over to America, we brought all of our flu and other sicknesses with us that you know we survived, but they couldn't survive.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I always read the plague situation between the Hittites and the Egyptians.
Okay.
But I suspect the reason why it hit the Hittites so severely is because they've just never had it before.
And that's why not too many people died from the plague, so they needed more plagues.
Needed?
For God to continue killing them off, I mean.
What?
Punishing them.
Huh?
So God sent a plague to the Egyptians.
Well, maybe.
I'm saying he did.
Okay.
And so it's like a sickness plague, or I don't know what kind it was, all right?
It was a bubonic for sure.
And then the Hittites, they got it and died.
Mm-hmm.
But the Egyptians had already had dealings with this stuff.
That's actually a really good point because theoretically, if this stems from the plague that God sent, according to the book, then God killed all the Hittites having done nothing wrong.
Yes, but my point is, you know, God would have maybe killed a few of the Egyptians with it.
While wiping out half of the Hittite Empire?
I don't care about them. I'm just saying, and that's why God needed to continue sending more plagues, because it didn't actually wipe them out. So we would have assumed it did.
The God was confused. He sent the wrong plague?
No, he was just trying to slow roll it.
He wanted to slow roll it.
Right. We know he wanted to
kill everybody.
We know he wanted to show off his, power.
He did.
That's why he had 10 plagues.
He really did want to show off the power.
That's what I'm saying. So you can't really show your power off to somebody if you've killed them all.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Nice.
So he slow rolled it, executed half the Hittite Empire, just to show everyone how cool he was.
I don't know what the Hittites did, maybe they were bad people. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know who they were.
What do you know about the Hittites?
I don't know who they were.
Wow, that kind of collateral damage is justified.
It's not collateral damage if they deserved it.
How do you know they deserved it?
I'm saying I don't know.
You just assume that they did.
I'm saying I don't know anything about them.
That's a bad viewpoint to hold.
Well, sorry for believing in God and God's sovereignty.
Well, I'm just saying that, you wouldn't give that grace to any other religion. If the Muslims came and decimated all of northern Africa, you wouldn't be like, well, I guess they sinned in God's eyes. They needed to be wiped out.
I'm just saying they might have. Do you know what they did?
We have pretty extensive records from the Hittite Empire. They were pretty normal people.
So very godless, right?
No, they worshipped multiple gods. Their high god was Teshub. Teshub. Yeah, he's just like every other pantheon. They had storm gods and moon god, sun god, mountain deities, things like that.
I'm trying to look up this McNeil's Law.
What's that?
What your buddy said.
Oh, yeah, Chet. I don't know McNeil's Law. What is it?
Let's see. Describes how diseases have significantly reduced native populations so that they are unable to resist colonization.
Yeah.
Colonization, not colonization.
Not kernelization?
No. They'll turn into popcorn.
The fact that kernel is spelled and pronounced so differently is straight up offensive.
I am offended.
Just saying.
Yes.
Not good.
Not good.
We need to reword it. We control the language we speak. I don't know why we didn't rewrite that word.
I don't know.
We're in charge of it.
That word is very anti-American.
We're gonna start spelling it the right way.
Yeah.
All right. So did we read 9? Because you stopped at the end of 8.
Right.
So I feel like you have to actually finish the chapter before we can talk about it.
All right. Jethro rejoiced for all the good that the Lord had done to Israel in delivering them from the Egyptians.
Fantastic. To the point that you made earlier, it's kind of weird that nobody heard about this, because if all these plagues did happen and the Red Sea parted, or the canal leading to the Red Sea, certainly it would have been the one where Midian lived, or it could have been the other canal.
Somebody would have heard something, right?
Yeah, all I'm saying is, like, it's improbable that these wild events occurred and then, like, nobody heard about it.
I don't know how big that pillar of fire was.
Yeah, exactly. It must be big.
It seemed really large, and the fact that I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like maybe you should have been able to see it.
You would think so.
Just a couple miles out. I don't know.
I mean, even the smoke from it, people would be able to see it, because back in the day, that was one of their ways of doing long form communication. You could do smoke signals from miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there was a giant fire in the middle of the desert, so people are going to notice that.
Yeah.
But either way, I don't know. Maybe they just heard rumors and rumblings, and they didn't hear the full thing, and so Moses needed to give a full account of what had happened, to one of his 2 father-in-laws.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting that they go over the top, stressing that this is his father-in-law. And my theory is that they're going to continue to do that because we've got 2 different names, and they don't want the reader to be confused. I suspect the editor to put this together was like, I don't be fooled. I know it's a different name. This is indeed Moses' father-in-law. If I say it 5 times, you'll remember it.
Actually, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what's happened.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's read our next paragraph, 10, 11, and 12.
Okay. Jethro said, "Blessed be the Lord who has delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because he delivered the people from the Egyptians when they dealt arrogantly with them." And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. Wow. He says that a lot, doesn't he?
Right. Yeah.
A lot.
If you didn't know who Moses' father-in-law is,
now you do.
You'll figure it out by the end of the chapter.
You better have.
Jethro said, "Blessed be Yahweh, who has delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh."
Didn't I just read that?
Wild that he segregated the Egyptians and the Pharaohs there, or the Pharaoh. But he said, "Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods," which is interesting here because, like, Jethro obviously is a polytheist.
Right.
And we have no indication up to this point that there is anything but multiple gods.
Yeah.
Even in Exodus, as we've already covered before, God himself says in verse 4, or verse 12 rather, it says, "I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from human to animal, and on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments." So, kind of seems to me that according to Exodus, there are multiple gods. Yahweh's just like the most badass.
Wait, I thought we already had agreed with that.
Yeah.
Well, not that there were multiple ones, but that's certainly what people believed up until God came on the scene and said, "Hey guys, I'm actually God. Those are fake."
Well, that may be the case. Yeah, that in reality there is only one God, but people believe there are multiple gods.
Right, that's exactly what happened.
Except that God himself says that he's judging the gods of Egypt, which would be something weird for someone to say if they knew that there was only one God.
Well, I mean, I have my own theories, but you've already debunked them quite thoroughly. But if you want to know, I always thought that it was because at the beginning, like in Genesis even, it was mentioned that God had set up like different angels or what have you, one for each country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One, you know what I mean? And then that's why Israel was special, because God himself was looking after Israel.
Right. So the other gods being referenced here are the angels.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you would definitely get in later Jewish writing.
Okay.
They would equate the angels as the god of the nations.
Right, yeah.
Which is why you get in the book of Daniel, the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece having the war, and the prince is actually referring to the two angels.
Yes, right. Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely a worldview that is supported in the Bible for sure. Yeah. So I agree with you, actually.
Undebunked.
Well, I wasn't attempting to debunk it.
I know, but we talked about it a long time ago.
Oh, the multiple. Yeah. So, anything else we should cover in there before we move on? There's not much happening there other than Moses' father-in-law is happy.
Sure is.
You know what I mean?
They're all happy.
I mean, I'd be happy too if, we were in some form of life and death situation by the Egyptians and you were able to survive it.
Why did you make a big deal of Egypt and the Pharaoh?
Well, I just thought it was interesting because there you go in verse 10, or let's see. Yeah, delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh, as though the Egyptians were actually like a separate group that were coming after Israel, but they weren't. It was really just a Pharaoh. I bet the Egyptians didn't care.
I mean, I'm sure some of the Egyptians cared. I mean, you can't really subjugate an entire people group if the only person who cares is the guy in charge.
Maybe, but remember, God predisposed them.
The Egyptians? Well, then he should have been happy that they were delivered from the Egyptians.
That's what I'm saying, is they weren't really delivered from Egyptians. And remember, they weren't really slaves either.
I know, but obviously they would have preferred freedom to slavery.
But they weren't. But they were.
Like, freedom to whatever they were called, vassals or something.
Yeah, fair enough.
I would think.
Yeah, close enough.
Which is why they all said, yeah, we'll leave.
Right.
And brave the desert. So, I mean, it couldn't have been the best living.
No, I mean, obviously they weren't enjoying it or else they would have stayed.
Yeah, especially after they had to do that chaff stuff.
Yeah.
How they were making bricks out of the crappiest
stubble?
Yeah, the crappiest part of the wheat.
The stubble, yeah.
At that point, they're probably like, you know what? This does suck.
Yeah, this is not what I signed up for. I don't like this at all.
Yeah, I mean, I could have done, the wheat, whatever.
Although that happened after God got involved, not before.
You know what? I don't know.
That's all right. Let's read 13 through 15.
The next day Moses sat as judge for the people, while the people stood around him from morning until evening. That's crazy, right?
That's what judges did.
Yeah, but it's crazy that there would be so many issues needing to be judged, right?
Well, there's theoretically 2.5 million of them.
Like, what are they doing that needs judging? Are there thieves?
Have you ever seen the court system? It's full of people arguing with each other.
Yeah.
He moved my landmark, or he owes me $15 for whatever, and never paid me.
I guess
people bicker and argue, and need somebody. Yeah, you have to have a third party to solve the dispute.
I guess Moses is the best one, right?
He's in charge.
Yeah.
While though that Jethro. Well, we wouldn't even read this. Just keep reading. We'll address it.
When Moses' father-in-law saw that all he was doing for the people, he said, "What is this that you were doing for the people? Why do you sit alone while all the people stand around you from morning until evening?" Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make known to them the statutes and instructions of God."
Yeah. So here's the kind of the weird thing is that theoretically God is talking through Moses.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And he's giving Moses instructions on how to deal with these people.
Right, yeah.
So why does he need Jethro to come and tell him, like, hey, you need other judges? Because wouldn't God just be like, hey, Moses, we need multiple people here. What are you, crazy? Like, why is it that Jethro has to come in and
probably because God was speaking through Jethro?
That certainly could be. But why wouldn't he?
I figured it out. Proud of me?
But if he's already speaking to Moses, it just seems like an unnecessary route.
No, it is weird because I wonder how long Moses had been doing that, from morning to night, just having to deal with people's petty little problems before Jethro said, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
You know? But, I mean, it's possible that God was a little hands-off. Maybe he just was like, you know what? I'm sure Moses will figure it out eventually.
Well, maybe. And I thought to myself, it's weird that Moses would not himself recognize that one person can't do it all, especially for this large of a people group. But my assumption was the only way to really square that up is like we kind of have to assume here that Moses was under the belief that only he was being spoken to by God. Like he had to do it because he's the one that has the direct connection to God.
I mean, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah, otherwise, if you're, a judge and you're passing judgment, but God's not speaking to you, then, it's very clouded by our own judgments.
Yeah.
So I could believe that. Also, Moses seemed pretty timid, so I don't know if he's gonna, go to other people and say, "Hey, you want to be a judge?"
True.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Seems weird for somebody so timid to have to, deal with everybody's issues. I bet he made a lot of enemies.
That's the problem with being a judge is you're always going to piss off somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever loses gets pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a hard position to be in. I would never want to be a judge.
I would. They're rich and corrupt.
Well, some of them are rich.
They're all rich. Give me a break.
That's not true.
Yes, it is. 100%. That's a fact.
We can just look at the statistics.
We don't have to because I know the facts are the facts. All judges are rich.
Average.
They're getting kickbacks. You've heard of kickbacks?
Average salary of U.S. judge. It's around $148,000.
That's pretty damn good.
With the lowest 10% getting only $45,000 and the highest 10% getting $200,000. But it certainly is a very good wage. I don't know if I would classify that as rich, but it's certainly not poor. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but I'd like to see all the, non-monetary things they get.
Well, that's possible that some of them are getting kickbacks, but obviously not all of them. But it's hard to not get kickbacks because people give you gifts. They're not supposed to give gifts to the judge, but it happened.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, Moses probably be getting tons of that manna. I can't eat all this. Okay. Thank you.
That's a good point. Like, okay. Let's go up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So it says in verse 12, Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. Are we to assume that this is the first burnt offering and sacrifice they've had in a long time since they're all just eating manna and probably quail?
No, because you said this whole time they've been doing sacrifices, right?
So it seems that way.
I mean, I presume they've been sinning this whole time because they do sin as people.
Yeah.
And how are they making up for it to God?
I assume offerings and sacrifices?
Right. So this couldn't be like the first one in a long time, right?
Well, I don't know. We assume that they sent the manna and the quail because they ran out of things to eat.
Yeah.
If they hadn't ran out of things to eat, then they wouldn't need the manna and the quail.
Well, it's possible they ran out of things to eat because they had to use all their food for sacrifices.
That's what I'm saying. I think they probably sacrificed all their animals, and that's why they said, hey, we have no meat to eat.
Mm.
And God said, oh, I'll give you some quail. So they didn't have any meat to eat.
No. They had animals, plenty of them, but they're like, no, we have to keep these for sacrifice.
Sure. So periodic sacrifices.
So, I don't know. I don't know how often people sacrificed back then, to be honest.
Well, for the priest, it would have been daily.
Okay. So they were going through animals pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So the Israelites would look at their, stock of animals and go, we can either eat these and have no sacrifices, or we can have sacrifices.
Yeah, that's my thought. My thought is that they probably didn't have 0 animals to eat when they cried out to God.
Mm-hmm.
They probably had some, but I'm sure they were like trying to maintain a minimum ratio.
I mean, they had to have sacrifices to God. I assume that was very high up on their list of...
Well, maybe God hadn't demanded it yet.
No?
No. They have no laws given yet.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you're reading the same book as me. Not a single law has been given.
Yeah, but they've already done a bunch of sacrifices, whether there's a law or not.
Just as goodwill stuff.
You think?
Yeah, goodwill offerings,
And they didn't do that? Well, they were in the desert now?
There's no like system, like you have to do it every so often, and you have to abide by this festival and that festival.
I didn't know how that worked. I mean,
well,
since people sin every day,
When we get to Leviticus, you'll find out.
Yeah. But of course, that stuff doesn't have anything to do with right now, I guess.
It does.
No, because, it's not. Those laws aren't happening right now, is what I mean.
Right, Leviticus hasn't been given yet, but we're about to get to a bunch of laws and Exodus rules.
All right.
So the fact of the matter is, when Moses' father-in-law, when Jethro brings the sacrifice, it's possible that Moses was like really tickled because he had a good barbecue in a while.
Right.
I mean, but that being said, let's see, where are we? What verse should we leave off on?
17.
17? Yeah, 17. Read 17 through 20.
Moses' father-in-law said to him, what you are doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people with you. For the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. You should represent the people before God and bring their cases to God. Teach them the statutes and instructions and make them known to them the way they are to go and the things they are to do.
Yeah. I guess we can read further. It's kind of connected. Just to finish the paragraph there.
You should also look for able men among all the people, men who fear God, are trustworthy, and hate dishonest gain. Set them as officers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them sit as judges for the people at all times. Let them bring every important case to you, but decide every minor case themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all these people will go to their homes in peace.
Right.
If you do this and God so commands you. So God hasn't really talked to anybody about this yet, right?
Right. And Jethro is kind of suggesting like this is what you should do, but make sure God's okay with it.
Just run it by him, you know what I mean?
Run it by the big guy, make sure this is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at first I was thinking maybe God was kind of talking through Jethro there. Because it was some pretty wise stuff. And not just wise, but it felt like he was kind of overstepping his place, you know? Because, here's Moses, the leader of these people, and here's some guy named Jethro who's like, I think I know a better way to do this, you know?
Yeah, and Moses is like, well, I don't trust you on account of I can't even know what your name is, and now you're telling me that
That's right.
To do the thing that God didn't tell me to do yet.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very possible after this, Moses was like, well, that's not a bad idea, but I better pray to God first.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And it's interesting, too, because he keeps in mind that Moses is still the conduit between the people and God. But he's just saying, like, when God tells you something, when he gives you his instructions, give those instructions to somebody else. Have a chain of command.
Right.
So it's good advice. Yeah, it's pretty sound.
Pretty sound.
Yeah.
This seemed, we learn later Jethro is like a really big Christian or whatever, right?
What?
A big follower of God or something. Like, he totally says no to the fake gods.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, he was a worshiper of Yahweh.
No, I mean, he becomes like a really big one or something, right?
He gives offerings and sacrifice to him in the verse we're reading right now.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, he's worshiping Yahweh.
Yeah, but I think he gets even bigger as we read, right?
I mean, more of a Yahweh follower?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, because doesn't he train priests under him?
I mean, perhaps, but he already believes that Yahweh is the most mightiest God. He just said it. Were you listening? You were the one that read it.
Is that a fly or something you're hearing?
I mean, the cat under your leg scratching himself?
Oh, is that the cat?
Yeah.
It sounded like a fly.
Not a fly.
Well, it sounded like a fly.
Cat's always down here.
Yeah, but maybe the cat's not always sounding like a fly.
I mean, he is right now, apparently.
Is the
cat flies in the house in the middle of winter? We're all dead.
Oh. Well, yeah, all right.
Fair enough. What were we reading?
I don't know.
I think we needed to read 22 and 23. No, we already read that. We need 24, 27.
Yeah, it's interesting that they had all the minor disputes, given amongst the little judges. But then, here's the major ones. I wonder what major disputes they would have. Were people killing each other back then or anything?
It did happen, but my guess is personal injury. Excuse me. Personal injury lawsuits probably rose to the top.
Yeah.
Which is why we get a lot of those early on in the law code. So, for example, when we get to Exodus 20 and 21, obviously we get the 10 Commandments, and then we get a lot of personal, civil type of law codes first. Like, what do you do when you sell your daughter to somebody else? Or if you injure somebody and they can't work, that's Exodus 21 is where we're going to see the eye for the eye situation come up and different things like that. If your ox gores somebody.
I got a lot to say about that stuff.
Yeah, the very first laws that come up are the ones that handle civil items, like strife within the community, because those are probably the most important. Is hey, you guys have to live together. So,
how long have they been out in the desert by this time? Do you think?
At this time, probably at least 2 or 3 months.
Okay, but not years or anything.
No.
So I mean, it's possible that nothing too bad has happened yet.
Yeah, I suspect. I mean, obviously, it's not been great. They're not enjoying it. That's why they need manna and quail, and they're probably fighting amongst each other for resources. But are they out there murdering each other?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. They're probably half of them are just happy to be alive and not in Egypt anymore.
And they can't fight over quail and manna anyhow.
They get as much as they can eat.
No,
as long as you get all you can eat in one omer.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, they get as much as they need.
Right.
I think that was the idea, right?
That was the idea.
So even if they were to fight other people for it, I don't know.
They get more every day.
Yeah.
If you're hungry today, you'll not be hungry tomorrow.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be hungry today anyhow.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying. But if you were,
yeah,
you don't have to be long.
Right.
You can wait a day.
Right.
Yeah. 24 to 27.
Sure.
Okay.
So Moses listened to his father-in-law and did all that he had said. I assume he prayed to God first. It's funny that it doesn't mention that, though. Moses chose able men from all Israel and appointed them as heads over the people, as officers over thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s. Who do you put an officer over 10 people? What does that mean?
Isn't that wild?
Right? I understand. Well, I mean, so there's 2.5 million people, so I'm just thinking, how do we do it nowadays? There's one judge per however many people in a city. I don't know. But certainly don't have anybody looking over 10s, right? Or hundreds for that matter, right?
Well, I think the smaller numbers are on top.
What?
The lower numbers are on the higher end of the food chain. 1, 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000. It's a top-down pyramid.
Yeah, as officers over thousands, hundreds. So
Right.
These are the number of people looking over.
Yeah.
So it's not top down; it's bottom up.
It is.
Which part?
It's always top down hierarchy. God's number 1, Moses number 2.
Yeah, no. Okay.
And then Moses probably has 10 people under him. Then,
yeah, but that's not what it says.
Then those 10 obviously have hundreds under them, and then under them is 50s and thousands.
Yeah, but that's not what it says.
So I don't know why you're putting it in the order.
It doesn't say it doesn't say that's the number of officers. It says that's the number of people.
There's officers over thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s. Yeah.
Right. So you have God over everybody, Moses over everybody but God. And then what? From there, maybe you hire 100 people to be over the thousands. And then from the thousands, you get, 10 people to be over the hundreds.
I don't think so.
Well, that's what they're saying.
No, it's not what they're saying.
Why would it start at 10 and go up?
Because that's how hierarchy works.
I don't think it is. I'm just saying, who's watching over 10 people? Why do you need somebody to look over 10 people?
You think Moses had thousands of officers?
Yeah.
So then Moses is doing all the work again.
Well, he's delegating.
So the whole point of hierarchy is to not have to do all that work. So now Moses is hearing all these major cases, and he's in charge of thousands of officers?
Yes.
That's ridiculous. That's not how hierarchy works.
Well, it's like an inverse hierarchy. Yeah.
The lower down in the food chain you are, the more people typically are coming to you. Just like a organizational structure where you work at. There's one person at the top, and you've got a couple vice presidents below them, and then you've got a whole team of managers below them, and then you've got the workforce below them, which is even bigger. It's always a pyramid.
I don't know. There's a lot to think about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if 1,000 employees were just always having to go to the top person?
Well, you better hire some good employees then.
Do you think a company would allow thousands of employees to bug a vice president?
I don't know.
Ridiculous.
Well, then they should have hired some really good employees. We don't need to bug them all the time.
Not how that works.
I know.
What I'm saying is hierarchy structures are always a pyramid.
Okay. And the further down you go, the more people you see. So you're trying to tell me that there's 1,000 people overseeing 10 people?
No, literally the opposite of that.
10 people overseeing 1,000?
Probably a little more nuanced than that.
All right. I just don't know who's looking over 10 people here. Right?
I think you're really confused.
Yeah. Here, listen. Talk to yourself for a second. This is 25. Moses.
This is just a turn of phrase, right?
What's that?
The phrase that we're reading right now shows up 12 times in the Old Testament.
Oh.
Maybe even more than that, probably 24 times.
And? What's it mean?
Just a generic hierarchy structure. It literally is just saying that you have a hierarchy that consists of smaller groups and larger groups. Not saying the order in which they appear is meaningless.
No, it's just an idiom or something.
Yeah.
Fine. I'll allow it.
It shows up in military terminology all the time.
In the Bible or
in the Bible? Yeah.
All right. I'll allow it then.
Yeah, the order of these numbers has nothing to do with the structure itself.
Well, you probably should have told me that.
I don't know why you would assume it did.
It's in the Bible like that.
But it's not.
Why am I supposed to assume they're using some sort of weird idiom or?
It's not an idiom. I'm just saying. He's just saying that there are officers over various groupings of people.
Yeah, all right.
And the groups have various sizes. Then you'd use your common sense to realize that hierarchical structures are top-down pyramid style.
I don't want to use common sense here.
Oh, okay.
I want to read the Bible.
Because even in the Bible, it was one man at the top, the king. The king had advisors, and then the advisors had servants, so on and so forth. All
right. Well, I'll look into it. All right.
Okay. Fair enough.
Talk about it next week. All right.
Sure.
All right. 26.
Yeah, yep.
And they judged the people at old times. Hard cases they brought to Moses, but any minor case they decided themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went off to his own country. The end.
Interesting. Why do you think he left?
Who?
Jethro.
What do you mean, why do you think he left? He had his own stuff to take care of.
I suppose, but it'd be way more exciting.
Way more exciting, but it seems like Jethro was kind of a big wig in Midian, right? I'm just saying, does it say that somewhere?
Yeah, he was the priest in Midian.
Okay, well, I mean, there's more than one priest, right? Or...
Well, we don't know that. The way it's worded, it could have meant that he was the high priest.
Okay. And it seemed like he was a pretty big deal, just because...
Yeah, he was. He had 7 daughters.
The more daughters you have, the bigger deal you are?
Well, I'm saying if you can support 7 daughters, you've got some income.
Oh, because the daughters ain't doing much.
Or else you would have sold the daughters off by now.
Yeah, because the daughters, they ain't working, right?
Right. Because if you don't have money and you have a daughter, you can just sell her as opposed to marry her off to someone.
Oh. Okay.
3 more chapters. We'll get to that.
All right.
Chapter 20.
So he probably was like, listen, I got stuff to do back at my house.
Probably.
Home thing. So if you need me, send me a letter.
How many of his daughters are still unmarried by this time, you think?
Well, my guess is 6.
Maybe.
Because we only know of one that was married.
Yeah.
Well,
Zipporah.
So Moses got married to Zipporah when?
In Midian?
Okay. And how? Whoa, well, yeah, but that was a while ago then.
I don't know. Probably, I don't know, 6 months ago? Who knows?
It was only 6 months?
No, that'd be more than that. Yeah, sorry. The timeline...
He had to wait for Pharaoh to die and everybody to forget that he was a murderer, right?
Yeah.
So...
And he was at the burning bush when he was 80.
Okay. We know that?
I think according to the book of Acts, I think he left Egypt when he was 40.
Oh, okay. So it was a long time.
Yeah. So if we go, is it Acts chapter 7? Let me double check. Because during the stoning of Stephen, there is...
stoning of Stephen Martyr?
What?
Stephen Martyr?
I mean, that's not his name.
But is that what people call him?
He has been called that, yeah.
My wife talks about him all the time.
Why?
For her book.
Oh. Okay.
Is that the one they're talking about?
Yeah, it's actually for 7. There's the speech given by Stephen. It says, at this time Moses was born, and he was beautiful, so on and so forth. So Moses was instructed in all the wisdom, blah, blah, blah. And when he was 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his kinfolk. So then he has the fight, and then he escapes when he's about 40. And then when he's 80 is the burning bush. Okay. It says... now, when 40 years had passed, an angel appeared to him. So he's 80 when he's at the bush, which means he was with Zipporah.
Yeah.
Between meeting her and between the Exodus, he had roughly 40 years. We don't know where in that 40 years the children were born.
Yeah, but I mean, he met her pretty quickly. Like as soon as he went to...
Seems that way.
I forget where they met, but...
The well.
And then... Yeah, didn't Jethro be like, well, bring him home?
Yeah, I mean, how is it that there's a strong Egyptian man out here and he's defending your honor at the well and none of you guys have shacked up yet?
Right. So they had to have gotten married pretty quickly.
Do you think Jethro tried to marry off multiple daughters? Try to get a twofer?
To Moses?
Yeah.
Was that a thing?
Look at me, of course.
Oh, I doubt it.
Why not?
Doesn't seem like something he would have believed in, or Moses for that matter.
Why?
It seems wrong.
Wrong? How's it wrong?
I don't know.
Bible never says it's wrong.
It didn't work out very well for Jacob.
No?
I made a good point though, didn't I?
No, you didn't. He had 12 sons.
I know, but Leah was always sad.
So?
That was it. That was my whole thing.
I don't know.
Didn't work out because she was sad.
She would have been sad single too.
Yeah, but maybe she would have just found somebody who actually loved her.
Yeah, but there's nothing in the Bible about polygamy being bad.
No. Okay, it just
God gives instructions for doing polygamy.
Oh my. Okay, we didn't get to that yet, though, right?
No, not yet.
Good. Otherwise, I'd be like, what? Okay, well then, in that regard, it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. Does it mean? I assume Jethro would have looked at Moses and thought, this guy's probably pretty wealthy, at least. You know,
he can. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you get a really good catch, you give him 2 daughters.
Yeah.
Right.
Or give him 3. Give him 4.
Yeah.
Just take the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially after the whole Exodus narrative and like the hearing everything that God did, he might be really impressed. Like, oh my God is really he really likes this guy.
It's my wagon to him.
You sure you don't want 2 or 3 more daughters? No?
Yeah, I wonder if that did happen then, huh?
They could dance real good. Make a really good flatbread.
Good old flatbread.
Really good with the timbrels.
The what?
Timbrels?
Timbrels.
Music makers?
Timbrels? A timbrel?
A tambourine? Have you never read the Bible, Dan? I'm so concerned that you don't...
No, I haven't. That's why we're going through it right now.
I know. The timbrel is the percussion instrument of choice for the people at this time period.
Oh, is that an instrument?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was
tambourine.
I thought it was a person. Like a timbrel was somebody who played a tambourine.
It does. It does kind of sound that way.
Yeah.
But no.
Okay.
No, that's not what that is.
A professional tambrel?
That's just like the King Jamesy way of saying tambourine.
Timbrel.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
You've never heard that?
Obviously not.
I'm baffled that an English major doesn't know this word.
I don't know all the words.
You do. You know so many words that I don't.
I know, but I know all of them.
But you use so many words that I have to ask you, what does that word mean?
But you're
the wordsmith.
You're very sweet to say that.
I'm just saying, you're the guy with the words.
Oh, okay. Then
you're the word guy.
Okay, the more you compliment me, the more I feel bad for not knowing that word.
Wordy make worder.
So I don't know what to do now.
Wordy make word face.
I'm sorry that I failed you, okay?
Danny make word face. That's what I'm calling you now.
Please, no. I'll just go back to college, all right?
So that'd be DMF. Danny make word face?
Don't say Danny.
Daniel make word face?
That's better.
Dan make word face.
I'm about to call you Justy. Oh no.
All right, I'm being ridiculous.
Dusty McBible face.
So I go for that.
Okay.
Okay. Did we sufficiently beat chapter 18 to death?
Yeah, short chapter.
Yeah, not a lot of good stuff to bite into there.
Might as well go to the next chapter, I guess.
I don't think so.
All right.
You got to do all your Christmas shopping.
I do.
On Christmas Eve.
So?
As one does.
Oh, it's better than tomorrow. I mean,
oh, gosh. Yeah,
if I did that, I'd have to go to CVS to buy all my stuff, the gas station. You know? I'd give everybody them little trees.
You get a family pack of the skulls.
That's right. Yeah.
We're not that red of a state yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. We can give it a couple of decades.
Oh, a couple of years.
Yeah, maybe. It's hard to say.
Yeah. We keep leaning redder and redder.
That's true. We really do. It wasn't like that when we were kids.
No, it wasn't. In fact, when we were children, so go to Ohio, so go the nation.
Yeah?
I mean, that had been how it was for such a long time. Everybody watched Ohio.
Right.
And now, nope. Now we're just red.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just red.
Yeah. But at least we're not Florida. Yes.
At least we're not Florida. Is that what everybody says? Hey, at least we're not Florida.
I would say that.
You know, it's funny. I would say at least we're not Alabama.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. Or Mississippi.
What's got better beaches?
Yeah. So at least there's Florida with the beaches, you know?
Yeah. I like beaches.
Yeah, they're good. I don't know what Alabama has. My guess is nothing.
Swamps? Bad accents?
Yeah, Alabama's really a trash state.
Not much there.
No.
Poor education.
Yeah.
A lot of teen pregnancy.
Yeah.
I assume a lot of Crocs.
Both crocodiles?
Living and footwear.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Probably, yeah.
All right, let's get off this tangent. It is Christmas Eve, guys. Thanks for watching.
And if anybody watching lives in Alabama, you know it's true. Get out of there.
Yeah, listen, we love you, Alabamans.
No, we don't.
But the fact remains, I mean, there's only a few states that are more boring than Ohio. Alabama's got to be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, we might be boring, but we're not like the shithole of America.
No, that's Michigan.
What?
They're the armpit. Have you seen Detroit?
No.
It's terrible.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of terrible places.
I'd go to Alabama before I went to Detroit.
Really? Only because you're white.
I don't think so.
Really?
No,
it's a big reason.
Detroit's just a shithole. Okay. It's horrible.
All right. Can we just agree that we have a lot of shitholes in America?
We do.
Okay.
Right.
There we go.
I agree with you.
That's our Christmas compromise.
All right. With that, guys, have a great Christmas. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
What?
You already know I'm busy next week.
Yeah, but I thought you were going to make time for me.
I have no idea why you thought that.
You weren't going to make time for me.
Nope.
Not going to make. Okay, that's fine.